Welcome to Podcast 83, a regular look at the news, stories, and trends related to Michigan's 83 counties from the Michigan Association of Counties. Brought to you in part by COMCAST, bringing the power of the internet into Michigan homes and businesses. Now, here's your host, MAC Executive Director Stephen Curry.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. This is our weekly podcast 83.
Yeah. Oh, included is right.
Maybe we might want to mute ourselves. Oh, one more time. There we go. There we go. So yes, welcome back. Deena Bosworth with MAC, and I'm joined by Meghann Keit-Corrion, and we are here today hosting it without our fearless leader. Miss him terribly, but he will be back next week after some great excursions, but I will let him tell you all about that when he gets back. Quick shout out to COMCAST for sponsoring our podcast. We are very much appreciative of that. So today we're going to talk about just a few things. We're going to cover a little bit of what happened last week and then touch base on what's coming up this week. Last week there wasn't a whole ton of voting activity to really report on. I mean, not necessarily noteworthy, but I will say this: we're working very hard to get that veterans property tax exemption bills moving out of the Senate. We met with Senator Bumstead, talked about how we really appreciate his efforts. Just to remind you guys, this veterans property tax exemption is our reimbursement for the cost of those exemptions to local units of government. Senator Bumstead did a fantastic job bringing in all the local groups and the veterans organizations, and we all came up to an agreement on how we could get this reimbursement. Now, we don't know. It changes all the time. Originally, they thought the cost across the state would be about $18 million. And they say maybe it's 50. The fiscal agencies are saying somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000. We don't quite know how much it is, but the method that we've formulated for these Senate Bills 783 and 784 would just come directly out of the Department of Treasury as a refundable income tax credit to the veteran, but payable to the locals. I say that and I remind you because I need all of you to use our phone to action campaign and really put a push on the Senate to take those bills up and pass them out so we can continue our momentum going into summer. That would be greatly appreciated. Met with Senator Lowers last week, who is the Senate floor leader, and tried to get him to really commit to taking these bills up this week. Now, they're not posted for tomorrow, so I need everybody to kind of get on the computer and send those messages, please. In addition to that, we have several other ones out there, and I think we're just going to tell you thank you. I mean, you know, Meghann worked so hard to stop those mental health bills, and those phone to action campaigns really did help put us over the edge. We've got one out there on binding arbitration. So please utilize that. The binding arbitration issue expands that benefit to county corrections officers, and that's sitting on the Senate floor. We've had lots of members be vocal on it, so it's still sitting on the Senate floor, and we're grateful for that. We've got some FOIA bills out there. We talked about those last week. That's another phone to action campaign. We don't want to see them move out of committee. We're trying to stop those as well. So keep that up.
Deena, just really quick, I'll chime in because I know the veteran property tax reimbursement has been something you've been working on for years and years. Even when I started at MAC, it was a huge issue 4.5 years ago. And I think this is kind of the closest we've ever come, which, you know, is basically just one step out of the Senate committee. But to have the veteran organizations on board and have so many partners is really you know, taken a huge step forward. And so I think, you know, with members being active on it and really getting legislators engaged and hearing from their locals is going to be really, really helpful with this approach to that reimbursement.
Thanks. Yes, I absolutely agree. I'm going to jump to another topic right now. Last week, also, the notice of a funding opportunity came out from the National Telecom and Information Administration. This is all about broadband. So we've been waiting for this to come out, this NOFO, they call it. And that's really for states to say, hey, we are very much interested in applying for money for the state of Michigan to do broadband build out across our state. Those notices of funding opportunities really lay out the groundwork for what the federal government expects, how they expect states to plan for this money, who they expect the states to work with in order to get this money, and really, how are they going to reach as many people as possible? So I started going through that notice of funding opportunity, and I'm encouraged. It's $41 billion that the federal government has set aside for this BEAD program. That it's called Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. But just for short, we call it the BEAD program. And so that $41 billion is there for the states to apply for to really build out broadband everywhere for unserved and underserved. Unserved, they consider to be 25 megabits in download speed and 3 megabits upload. That's completely unserved on their mind. And according to this NOFO, they're going to really prioritize that. Underserved is, they consider that to be 100 megabits download and 20 megabits upload. And I think that's fantastic. So really they're saying, hey, get out to where you got to get out, but just remember, we need as fast as speeds as we can. So now the state has until January 18th to send in their application and their intention to move forward with this. After that, they'll have 270 days to come up with a plan. And then they have to submit that plan to the federal government. Once NTIA, the National Telecom and Information Administration, once they get that, they'll figure out what those allocations are going to be. But according to estimates, pretty much agreed upon, Michigan is going to get well over $1 billion of this money to send out. Now, just FYI, we've been working pretty hard behind the scenes on trying to figure out how counties can be an integral part of the broadband build out. As you know, the previous $250 million that was allocated for broadband build out, counties and local units of government were not eligible for those grants to do our own. We were prohibited from it. We are going to seek legislation here in Michigan, and hopefully this notice of funding opportunity opens the door a little bit more for counties to have a much more direct role in broadband build out. Because the more we talk about it, we really, public-private partnerships are awesome, and many counties are going to do that, engage in those public-private partnerships for the build out. But there are some where you're not going to have a provider able to put the lines in the ground. You may have to contract for it or actually do it yourself. So anyway, working on that. So that just came out on Friday. Expect more reports on that in the coming months. I just had a nice conversation today with a new director for the My High office, the Michigan High Speed Internet office. And he has made himself available to come and talk to our membership at any time and give us status updates. So we'll keep you updated on that. So what's happening this week, Megan? What you got?
Yeah, pretty pivotal point in the budget process coming up this week. As our members know, we've been starting out this year, of course, having a governor's recommendation for the fiscal year 23 budget. We've had House pass their recommendations, Senate pass their recommendations, and really just kind of moving through this process. But on Friday, it is the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference, Friday at 9 a.m. There's two Consensus Revenue Estimating Conferences, CRECs we call them, 2 a year. And so we had one in January, and at that point, the state was estimating about $1.5 billion over higher revenues than anticipated. And so now we're coming to the second one for the year that they're going to really determine between the directors of the House and Senate fiscal agencies and the Department of Treasury, and determine what that final revenue estimate is for the year, so that the budget leaders, the appropriations chairs, can really start having those hard negotiations between the legislature and the governor to come up with a final agreed upon budget, hopefully by the mid to end of June. So it's pretty pivotal. I think that right now, what we've been hearing is that some estimates are still going to be even higher potentially than expected, but we know that the legislature, and I think even some of our members, are all kind of wondering, when that's going to change, right? When we're going to see some plateauing or potentially, decline for our revenue. So
Oh, let's stay positive.
Well, I know, but it's the reality, and I think that's something that the legislature is trying to be very mindful of, because we know there's high dollars, there's a lot of federal dollars that have come in, but at the end of the day, they want to make sure that it's also a sustainable budget, and I know that our county and local members are thinking about that too.
Yeah, we absolutely are. That reminds me, we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but we are working on a revenue sharing trust fund package of bills, just because of exactly what Meghann just said. We're very concerned about, declines in revenue, even though I try not to talk about it. But when that inevitably does happen, we'd like to find a way to better secure revenue sharing for counties.
Yeah,
Would you mind muting yourself?
inevitably happens.
Oh, inevitably happens. Yep. So we are working on the revenue sharing trust fund. I think we've secured some bill sponsors. Hopefully we can get that introduced in the next week or two and start moving forward with that. The last thing I wanted to talk about today was House Bill 6062 by Representative Coleman. That's on public notices. Now, we talked about public notice bills in the past. The bills that passed and went to the governor and she signed them allows newspapers to put your notices online, which is fantastic. Representative Coleman's bill does something very different. Representative Coleman's bill says you can put your notices on your own website starting in 2024. So you wouldn't actually have to be paying the newspaper industry for your public notices to go out. Now, they're saying you still have to send those notices to the newspaper. If they choose to print them, they do. They have to keep print copies of them. The bill also says that if you have residents who want to be on your mailing list, you can send, you have to send them by first class mail all of your notices, whatever it is that they want, and they'll renew that each and every year. I say that because it's going to be probably a battle in the legislature, and a battle between local units of government and the press about whether or not we should still be paying the newspapers for putting our notices in their newspaper. And so just be aware of that. We'll probably do another phone to action campaign on this issue as well, and just help educate our members that, look, it's a dying print industry. They can still have them. They still want to be the watchdogs of local government. We will still be obligated to send them our notices, and they can do that. But really, should we be paying for them when it is just public information? So I expect that to have a hearing this week on Thursday, and I'll let you know how it goes after that.
Do we have any questions, Derek?
No questions so far.
Feel free to use the chat, or I think you should have the capability to unmute.
Okay, then. Well, you guys know how to get a hold of us. Don't hesitate to reach out, to ask questions, to get information. Please use the phone to action campaign and the resources we've put out there for you. We greatly appreciate it. We do. Okay, I'll give you your Monday afternoon back then. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Podcast 83, brought to you in part by COMCAST, bringing the power of the internet into Michigan homes and businesses.